Mad Scientist,
Title character themes,
Poor Puppies,
Face Off.
all that and so much more on this episode of the Deadlights Podcast.
The devil's eyes.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
You're gonna need a bigger potion.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I'll play a game.
Want it? Kill 'em all. Want it?
You lose who you take mine. Live, dead, lives.
Welcome to the Deadlights Podcast. I'm your host, Sam.
And I'm your other host, Matt, bringing you a deep dive into horror.
Welcome back, Season 5. Here we are
Here we are.
in the Playground Social Studios, our home in the...
PGS Studio 2.0.
We're so glad to be here and so glad that you're here with us.
We're so thrilled to be here with you all, bringing you an exciting lineup this year.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. Please make sure that you like, you subscribe, you turn on those notifications, comment. We want to hear what you want us to deep dive into.
We want to know your perspective. We want to hear feedback on what we have to say. We're not married to any of our opinions. It's just a perspective we may have. And we want to know what you guys have to think about these films, too, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. We honestly, the reason that we started this whole thing was just to get people to watch and talk about more horror. So we want to hear whatever your opinions are, and it's going to be different than ours, and that's okay.
That's
cool.
perfectly fine.
That's great.
It's where we want to be.
That's where we want to be. Where we want to be. Well, should we get into the movie that we're deep diving into this week?
Yes, this week's was a beaut.
It was a beaut.
Eyes without a face.
Eyes Without a Face. Can you guess what movie that we're reviewing? Eyes Without a Face from 1960. Directed by Georges Franju. Written by Pierre Boulez, Thomas Narsjak, Jean Redon, Claude Saudet, and Pierre Gascar. A surgeon causes a car accident which leaves his daughter disfigured and goes to extreme lengths to give her a new face. Oof. Extreme indeed. Extreme indeed.
Yeah, talking for the time. We're back in 1960. It's a French film. They're not, it's very poetic. It strikes a very, very beautiful chord. It has a very nice build, the elements that layer within it.
It's one that always sneaks up on me, as like you said, for being 1960.
It sneaks.
It sneaks for sure.
It's a sneaker.
Very slowly sneaks, but it pretty much just, it always surprises me. Every time I see it, I'm like, wow, this is 1960. We're pushing boundaries. We're definitely leaving me feeling uncomfortable and shook and still like feeling like it's a beautiful film, And we're coming in a time in the late 1950s, we're getting a lot of these Hammer productions, which are like very schlocky B movies. And the French really weren't playing with horror movies at this time. And so this was their first attempt at dipping their toes into something that is horrifying. And being the French, they couldn't really help themselves but be a little bit more poetic with it.
Yeah, have a little bit more artistic, ingrained approach. I mean, like, the beauty within it is how resonant you are to the characters. And the flow of that initially, and we're trying to map and figure out where we are, where we're going, what we're building to. And then when we first strike a chord of the kind of first operational scene, as it were, as this professor surgeon here is trying to go to all ends that he can to basically, preserve his daughter's life. She's still living, but he's trying to bring her back, give her a new face, give her a new shot at life, and
in many extreme ways. And we watched this movie, and then we watched that trailer that the American trailer for this
Yeah.
movie, which they renamed this movie The Horror Chamber of Dr. Faustus.
Yeah.
And they advertise it as this very, again, schlocky kind of B horror movie, and they paired it as a double feature with The Manster.
Yes.
So again, I think that is kind of showing the divide that we're at with American movies and French movies at the time, which I absolutely love to kind of look at those side by side, see what people are up to in different countries, where we're at in the film industry.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it feels it's different than American movies at that same time.
yeah, and censorship across the board. I think it was like touching on that is like that's one of the beautiful thing. I remember back in film school we were there. I had aesthetics in the media arts. It's a class I took one semester, and through that we all took.
Yes.
And there was a great section there where we kind of looked at censorship through the decades. And people who started breaking through walls, pushing the boundaries more and more until we kind of, hit that line of diminishing return and we start rescinding back, and now we're kind of pushing back out there again. But America could not take the brutality, even the subtle brutality that is thrown out in this film. And I know we didn't watch it together, but I believe the U.S. version cut out the main surgical grafting scene.
Oh, really?
And fact check us on that. I apologize, I don't have it fully flushed out, but from what I believe that I read on that is that they did nix that, and I mean and maybe they cut around it in some way, but that's a substantial feeling point that you get from the film, from all ends, character-wise, perspective-wise, that you kind of are steeped into in that moment.
Yeah. That, I think, is, again, it just showing the difference in art cultures, And I love, that's part of the reason that I picked this movie to be in this lineup, is because I wanted to give us a different perspective, a different country's movie to
Absolutely.
examine, because I think it's important to watch these
course.
movies, because we're getting things that we aren't used to seeing, and that's okay. That's great.
Of course.
And so I think that for a long time when this movie came out, it wasn't received well, even in France. But I think now looking back on it, it's kind of got its due. It's definitely influenced a lot of horror movies that we both love, that people love. And I think it's starting to get its due recognition. And I'm excited to talk about it. I think we should just hop into it.
Let's jump in.
Let's jump in. Let's open the can.
Here we go.
Open up this can and let's talk about the filmmaking. And I want to start off by tipping the hat to the director, Georges Franju, who for a long time was actually a film archivist. And he was the co-founder of what is now one of the world's top film archive buildings. They have some of the largest inventory of film artifacts, and then started to dip his toes into documentaries. And then this was one of his first attempts at a feature film.
I think it was his second feature.
Yeah. So he's a fresh director.
Yeah.
But he clearly has some chops.
Some chops and some ambition. He's got an ambitious mind there, and really beautifully tied in. I mean, the story is really driven through three characters' perspectives. We have a little bit of people circulating outside of that, but we're really kind of rooted into where the story is taking us through the perspective of the professor, of his assistant, and then his daughter, who he is trying to, of course, resurrect. And there's kind of this beautiful dance that you see of the range of emotions that the three of them carry for one another differently, and through the different difficulties that they kind of face and go through within it. And it plays, and like after that first viewing, I'd be able to absorb it a little bit. Upon that second viewing, I was able to really kind of be able to parse out that dance a little bit more. And the cohesiveness between these characters, it really, the pacing of it played out very well.
I think that's always a big thing for me in this movie is the pacing, which again feels very different than the pacing that we typically get in quote unquote the Hollywood Universal movies, which a lot of long periods of silence, people moving through spaces, letting it breathe. We're along the ride with these people, a ride that we sometimes want to get off of, but we can't. And he is not afraid to just leave us in these people's lives. And I feel like some filmmakers would be afraid that people are going to get bored. They need people talking. They need action to go on. But yeah, when you really start watching this movie, you're realizing that all these shots, it's that they're slow paced. They're telling these stories, And I think that, the first time that we meet Christiane, the disfigured daughter who he's trying to give a face, he's moving through his house, and he's going door after door, upstairs, up more stairs, into another door. And the first time I was like, my God, like, how big is this house? Where did he put his daughter? But the second time I'm thinking like, man, he's really shuffled her away. He's really hidden her away. He's kind of ashamed of this accident that he's probably caused and the thing that he's trying to fix. And so that's all visual storytelling that we have going on, that he isn't afraid to let those moments play out to tell us, wow, she's very far removed.
Je réussirai, je te jure.
Je n'y crois plus.
We're just coming off, at this point, him having left a funeral that our understanding is that was his daughter's funeral. And that was his big ploy to bury that away, to have people not search after her anymore, to give her more ease, him more ease and peace of mind as he continues his experiments and tries to set her life anew, a new path. And
it's all for love.
All for love.
It's all for love.
It's the emotions can get very torn between the three main characters again, and where their heart's coming from, the intention behind it. You can really feel for each of them and back where each of their intentions are coming from, and then where each of their fears come from too. Between the assistant and the professor, there was this kind of continuous, like, calmness and then unedged, unnerved. One moment I in particular that really struck early was when they're at the funeral. The assistant is starting to get really kind of on edge, noticing people around, uncomfortable with what they have done and what they're accepting.
She's freaking out.
She was freaking out, and then she, we learn in turn that the assistant had been operated on before, and she was a successful patient.
Ouais, je l'oublie quelquefois.
Tu as raison. Il reste si peu de traces.
Chut, Louise.
When he gets close to these surgical things, we then have the assistant with so much conviction and support. She's like, he's got this. This is what he does. Look what he did to me. And she's going to take care of you. But he starts losing it. He's sweating bullets. He's
breathing hard.
He's breathing heavy. We have these tight shots on him, just hearing that breathing. And you hear a mouth breather. It's tough. It's tough to be around.
They're supporting each other.
Exactly.
In this
That's
weird,
where my long-windedness was trying to get to this balanced scale.
In this weird, like,
emotional
toxic
support of where they need it. Yeah, definitely
it's a toxic relationship because they are hurting many people.
Hurting many people in the sanctity of love. Trying to obviously root it from a good place, as any of these unfortunate tales tend to do.
Yeah.
Where the villain, what may be the driving force for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was. They were able to keep all these people, their motivations, their fears, like you said, all together, and it's not easy to do, to juggle three people's motivations and journeys, and so and without much talking. You know, we were able to see those journeys and those catharsis play out without them even saying much, which made it feel even more natural. And then that leads me to wanting to talk about the acting, which I think is also partly why it feels so natural, is because the acting style, it feels like leagues beyond like this Hollywood theatrical
really
kind
embellished.
of play-like embellishment, acting style that we see in a lot of movies at this time. It felt very grounded in reality.
Qu'est-ce que tu as encore fait?
Ce qu'il fallait faire. Pour ton bien. Toujours pour ton bien, Christian.
Christian, for example, the first time we hear her and see her, how poignant she is, and it's just, you feel so heavily for her.
Yeah.
And how mortified she is of her disfigured face, the mask that she has to wear.
It's all in her eyes, like
Yes,
because that mask,
that's all you're able to pull from.
that mask is obviously erasing her face,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's just those big eyes set in the mask holes really are expressive, and then her movements, they're not, again, they don't feel overplayed, but they do have to be slightly over dramatic for us as the audience to understand what she's feeling. It's a very hard line to ride, and I think she did a great job. You immediately feel bad for her. She's quote unquote the monster of the movie, but it's coming from a place of pity rather than fear.
Yeah, and we also get a nice character attachment for each. So I guess the assistant has her own kind of score. With the assistant, we get this beautiful, fun, kind of Curb Your Enthusiasm intro. Circusy kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And
It starts off as like fun, but as the movie goes on, it starts to really get sinister.
Yeah. It really plays into that, and that's where, for me, again with the assistant, I'm like, she's a little diabolical, and because she's going out doing the dirty work for the professor, luring in, finding the nice, next pretty face, luring them in with all these hopes and desires and ways to take them out of, I think the first gal, Edna, she buys her ticket and then wants to provide her all these beautiful opportunities to come back, to stay in the suburbs, which are not convenient for her. As she speaks, it's not very convenient for me here. What are you talking about? The suburbs are very convenient.
They're nice.
They're nice. Let me give you this drink while I slip a quick hand of chloroform over your mouth. And put you down and get ready for that first.
Come on.
Oh yeah, you could tell behind her eyes. She was like, "I know I shouldn't be here." There was any of that gut feeling, that instinct that any of us have. We know a situation's not right. We know she had it right there, and she just couldn't escape her fate at the time. But then to round out the themes, Christian's theme is this kind of beautiful, kind of almost angelic and whimsical melody, but also, it kind of plays to her like porcelain doll-esque floating, just, it's almost like she's in this in-between state between life and death. She wants death of herself. She can't bear this existence. That her father, who, again, wanting to do the right thing, all these people, intentions in the right place, actions pretty sideways. But what are you to do?
Yeah, and they've got to that point, honestly. And the last thing I really wanted to say in the can was, when we're talking about a movie that's about vanity, there's a lot of mirror shots. There's many times when we're seeing people in mirrors. In the house, all the mirrors are covered, but we do still have some small mirrors that she looks into. And again, that is a physical thing that we have in our set, in our space, that the camera is shooting, that is going towards what we're talking about. And I always like to tip my hat towards those details, because someone thought of that. Like, whether it was the director or whoever suggested it, someone thought of, like, we need to have mirrors be a consistent theme, because that's what we're kind of talking about. That's That's what we're playing with. So I like to acknowledge those details.
Yeah, not to mention the rest of the set, and whether or not it was practical, on like location with the house, but those tracking shots, those early tracking shots we're getting, which I know you love so much, they were fantastic. And then these arched hallways that are kind of like obtuse between one another, these levels coming up, just kind of gives this like twisted depth of field, distance, and then. What we haven't touched on yet, the doctor also, the professor here, he's, to be able to flush out his earlier experiments and things, he has just a cast of dogs.
A lot of dogs.
Stored away. You just hear them barking in the distance all the time. The set for that room of all the caged dogs, it's striking in a way that's hard to kind of describe and explain without having a nice visual representation to it. But
don't worry, I'll show you for those
we'll see
who
it
are
right
watching.
here.
Yeah, but you're right. There is something about that like dog chamber. Again, it's a lot of cages. We're seeing a lot of birds in cages too. She is in somewhat of a cage herself, and so we're always tying back to the themes that we're talking about, even in the set design. So. It's great. It makes it very satisfying. It makes it very rich, more to talk about, more to look at and think about. Do you want to? Maybe we should get to the meat.
Let's get into
what
the
we
meat.
are talking about in this
the meat
movie,
of it.
Which is like we talked about. We're talking about vanity a lot. What are the extents that we go to save face, quote unquote, and also kind of this idea of like pushing science. What are the boundaries of science that we're pushing? Should we be pushing them? And what are the things that we have to sacrifice in order to push the boundaries and have new discoveries? We talked about the professor, his initial motivation is to give his daughter a new face because he caused this car accident. There's guilt there, and I think that's where it kind of starts. But where we come to him in the movie, it feels like it's kind of progressed into a place of vanity where he is now obsessed with being right. He won't let the science best him.
Tu n'as aucune raison de douter de moi. Bon Dieu, on sait ce que je vaux, non?
For Christiane, she initially too, when we first hear her and then see her revealing of the mask and her disformed face, she talks about how horrified she is of seeing herself, of course, but seeing the mask, but also feeling. She talks about this kind of like rubbery, textured aspect to it. So, like, we don't hear full conviction that this is what she wants. Although when we see the first successful, for the time being, face graft that went onto her, she's trying to accept it and come into normalcy again. He's now telling her, don't worry, we just faked your death. You don't have to worry. I'm going to get you a new name. I'm going to get you a new passport. You're going to travel. All this just like, holy shit, what the fuck? What is happening?
That scene is, I think, a perfect, like, she realizes, she has that face. She's got her new face, but she's still trapped. She is still going to be under her father's control and thumb. She's not going to be Christiane.
And she's lost her fiancé.
Who
worked for her dad. And now this guy doesn't, he's like, oh, she's dead, she died. And then she's just like, she's up in the room one night and then calls him and then just, Jacques. Immediately, the assistant sees her doing that. What are you doing on the phone? You can't do it. How dangerous this is.
Yeah.
And just all the big cabal that they're all tied into within this journey, but this all these wrongful experiments.
Well, and it, kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Yeah, the assistant and the professor, they definitely have a toxic relationship, but all three of them do. They're all feeding into these lies, into these crimes that they're committing. The assistant is almost this like motherly figure to Christiane, and she really needs that sometimes when her father is this like very rigid scientist. You're right too. Christiane has a stake in all of this bad stuff that's going on to get a new face, to be, you know, quote unquote normal. And also between Christiane and her father. Like,
Yeah.
I think at a certain point, she's just continuing to go through it for his sake too, because she knows that he wants to be successful in this
and
surgery.
I mean, and that's her dad. She's
Her
trying.
dad.
She's trusting her dad.
So it's
he
just
has
this-
the best intention in mind. While like deep down, you can just tell the whole time. Deep down, she's like, "This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong way." And she finally comes to being able to face that for herself and make the ultimate decision to liberate and free herself by ridding herself of this nightmare that she's in.
Literally
and those
freeing
involved
everything.
in it.
Yeah, literally freeing everything. Open all the cage doors. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm happy that she gets out of the control of her father's thumb at the end. But it also isn't. I don't know if she can live a normal life. I think she is kind of cursed to be this ghostly figure. You know, she isn't going to be Christiane anymore. She can't really return to her fiance. You know, she is presumed
she has
dead.
no support. This was her only support left. I had like a little bit of thoughts back and forth, and though heavy as it may be, I'm like, I would have almost expected her more to do that and then end her own life in a way. Like, we get this very moving and beautiful end where she releases all these caged dogs onto her father, and then these caged birds, these doves, that she then takes with one on her hand. What I did like, the takeaway with that, is how she's been built up as kind of like this ghostly figure already and everything, and it just kind of seemed like she's already this spirited state, and she's just kind of floating out into the ethos, into the atmosphere. Also, the atmospheric environment that they established throughout was very nice.
Oh yeah.
And very kind of left you a lot of emptiness, because they're outside of Paris. They're out in the burbs, and you feel really into these isolated areas.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful and poignant moment for her at the end in this kind of release, but yet at the same time, you're just really left thinking, what in the hell are you going to do now? Like, I understand maybe that French filmmaking, it's really just trying to get to the point of the emphasis, the emotion. We're not really needing to speculate further into the story beyond what it's really able to convey. But
to me, like, that whole last end, it really just, again, speaks to the ripple effects that we have of these kind of toxic relationships. It doesn't end when, because honestly, she went about ending this toxic relationship with violence, So what are the ripple effects of that? I don't think these stories in real life really necessarily end happy. So to me, it kind of is like more realistic of like, well, I guess we'll see. I hope the best for her, but I'm just not sure. I'm not sure if she'll ever be okay.
Il faut me tuer. Je n'en peux plus. Non plus.
I just kind of had the thought come up, she stabs the assistant in the throat.
Yep.
Right near where her scar originally was for the procedure that was done onto her.
Yep.
And then for her father, it's just a little bit more of a, and he's been just basically buying all these dogs to do skin grafts on and procedures, and obviously gives just them their free justice, and then turn onto, their justice then onto her father.
Yeah. But yeah, it again just plays so well to what we're talking about, which is your actions will come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
And they certainly did in his case, and chomped down.
Reap what you sow.
Let's get into the cook,
Shall we?
talking about how we're taking these themes and how we're presenting them in this film. And really what we're seeing playing out is kind of this French version of Frankenstein. We have our mad scientist who's obsessed with the pursuit of knowledge or power, and that is our Dr. Genesir. We have our Igor character, who is Luis, who is this very devoted, so faithful assistant who is doing the dirty work, getting the faces,
and lifting him up
at every
moment he's down.
Yeah, she's always there for him. And then, of course, we have our monster, who is Christiane, and
it's the same feeling, you know.
It's the same.
Like it's not this ugly monstrosity that everybody's scared of and everything, but she is. But it's just like it's in this like this simple, elegant, and beautiful. Like when we see the mask for the first time, it is just it's so tight to her face, like already. I mean, you can barely see the deviation of it. And all you're seeing is just really just like this pale, expressionless, and with those big, baleful eyes, just like you just have such a lured feeling in for how much heartfelt tension she's going through. And like within the monster, obviously the monster didn't have any choice. She didn't have any choice either. Neither of them had any choice for the lot of life that they're put into, and they're just at the behest of their beloved master and or father.
Yeah, and their obsession.
In that unending obsession to, you know, be able to have their master creation.
Il finira sur moi ses expériences comme sur ses chiens. Un cobaye humain, quelle aubaine pour lui.
Another thing that I wanted to bring up in The Cook was, again, that kind of like slow pace. I think that first scene that we have, where even though we don't really know what's going on, I think it just does such a good job of establishing the pace that we're going to get for the rest of the movie. It's Luis disposing of a body, no words, a lot of sound effects, a lot of reaction shots from her being very stressed out.
Yeah, driving cops, whoever may pull up on her. Or
who's following me? Am I going to get away with
where
this?
She's set to get the body out.
We know something tense is going on, and we watch the whole thing again play out. We're not cutting time. We're with her in the car along this ride that we can't escape. And it eventually leads to her dumping a body. Luis, with her big guns, gets a body out and dumps her into a river. And just that scene, I think, is a great job of showing what we're going to get for the rest of the movie. You know, we're going to get these long, drawn-out moments. We're going to get this brutality. And the movie goes back and forth between these things of these very long, slow moments and sudden moments of like, holy shit, that's horrifying. Or, oh my God, that is shockingly gross, you know? I really enjoyed the pace of this movie. Because
really good marinating.
Yep.
Yeah, marinate well with all the characters.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we should get to the thrill, you know?
Yeah.
The scary parts. Which you already brought up. I would love to talk about that operation scene.
And this poor girl, down on her luck. Is it Edna this time?
Edna.
I believe, who just, they lure her in there and then they chloroforms her and like, you know, she wanted a better life and they just lure her into this. And
poor gal. It is a scary part of this movie, the fact that we have Luis, the assistant, stalking women, picking them out without them knowing, and the cops being completely ineffective, letting this happen.
Yeah. And for me in particular, there is something very unsettling to a female figure like that, and especially when they're calm and calculated. And you think there's women, you know, especially in where the assistant's at, is that kind of otherwise seemingly mother nurturing figure. So you take that, extrapolate it yourself, and you're like, oh, you see her going out here conniving and just feeding all this bullshit to these women to like lure them in, and it's just like, oh, it's wrenching,
blank faced.
Yeah, you just know. I'm like, oh, you're maniacal.
We see her feel bad about things in certain moments,
but not in the moment. With these.
When she's on, when she's stalking, when she's in the surgeries, she is like focused.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely a horrifying part of this movie. Is like, where has their relationship pushed each of them to? It's scary. Alongside these scenes of actual practical scary effects for me, for the time. Shocking to see that operation scene when it takes its time and we finally get to them, clamping all around her face and then pulling it, and we see it. We see it removed from the face.
That intercut with how calm she is in that moment, because that's not when we see her freaking out. We see her freaking out more around getting caught around these situations and stuff. But in the procedure, she's like enthralled. I think she's smitten a little bit with the professor and liking what he's doing. He is about to have a goddamn heart attack. He's breathing hard, sweat beads just flowing down his face. And that, like, it goes to sound and the impact of sound too, because that is an area that always gets me. And I go back to why I was not a huge fan, and I haven't seen the other ones, but season 1 of White Lotus was so much of what built the tension in that show was within the music, the score, whatever. I was like, what are we doing with all this? Just trying to give me anxiety and heart palpitations.
Absolutely.
But that slow, almost a little shaky, not steady hand of the scalpel around the face. But then, when we really get to all those pliers, like, just, you start to get little lifts and not enough. You just feel, you're just like thinking of all that connective tissue underneath, and just like the prying of that up.
And this slow ride that we've gone on this entire movie. And I mean, they prepared us for this. They haven't cut away from anything else. So you're like, they're not going to show us, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not actually. Oh wait, they are. We're seeing this. They're not cutting away. We're not cutting to the next scene.
Yeah, and what audiences in 1960 were in France were thinking.
I read that when it premiered in Edinburgh, I think it was something like 7 to 10 people fainted during that scene, which I can understand, because
100%.
for me, even, I was like, damn, that's gross.
And we're talking 1960. Well, we're in the era of Terrifier now, and where they're really pushing things so hard and heavy to get to that point of, like, that's what they want. I mean, so many horror movies now, trailers released for them are just audience reactions of people freaking out, or people passing out, or hearing. Even here's a great tidbit. It goes back to this Rick Baker interview. Beautiful monster maker, did the American Werewolf and London Werewolf, worked on Star Wars, so on and so forth. Michael Jackson, Thriller makeup. But he was at Sundance or something for Reservoir Dogs, and Rick Baker was there seeing that and another film or something. But anyways, he walked out during the torture scene of Nash, the cop, when he's cutting off his ear before he gets to that. And just because Rick Baker, as much as he's done a lot of things in horror and stuff, he doesn't like really bloody, over-the-top things and stuff. But Tarantino heard about that and heard Rick Baker walked out of his film during that time, and he just was fucking thrilled, jazzed about it. Like, oh, Rick Baker walked out of my movie. It's just like, you look for that. I'm trying to remember, even an Entourage, or maybe it wasn't Entourage, but it was like a play on movies, from a TV show perspective or something, where it's just like they want the audience, they want somebody to die in their screening, basically, to have that type of impact.
Yeah.
So to have this heavy of an impact at this time in the era that they are in, and the types of films that are being seen at that time. Yeah. So something that we're not familiar with being presented.
Yes.
And again, in an unforgiving and really, like, you're locked into this.
And specifically at this time, I think plastic surgery was still pretty new. A lot of medical procedures pretty new. That was very foreign to people. So being in the operation room in this scene, they weren't seeing ER. They weren't seeing fucking Grey's Anatomy and seeing all these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
That itself, I'm sure, was strange and kind of uncomfortable. But then to see like an actual procedure play out, my God. Like, yeah, that is something that you're not used to seeing. And when you see an actual huge, full face pulled off, that's shocking for anybody. That was shocking for me. I was like, whoa, I can't believe we just saw that. So I tip my hat to them for that. And then in the thrill, I think, I hesitate to even talk about Christiane. She is technically the monster of the movie, but really she's more of a victim.
and again, it strikes back to a place of really feeling for her. Is everything is always just going back to a lot of emotion for her and resonating with a lot of empathy. But is when it starts to fail. Like the mask initially takes and is fine, and then we get the sequence of like these just photographs, and it's like week progression after another 3 days, 7 days, whatever it may be, and not only is the face starting to kind of discolor, disfigure and stuff, but obviously, I mean, her emotional state within all of that is just, there's like this empty hollowness behind those eyes.
Oui, je sais. Les morts doivent se taire. Alors que je devienne morte pour de bon. Je n'en peux plus.
And that mask itself was a cast of her face.
Yeah, it
but
was
almost like kind of more sculpture-like, very smooth.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly, like a sculpture would be. It was very just smoothed over, but it was to the extent of the features of her face.
It was essentially what the doctor was trying to achieve. Let's get to the ride.
Yeah,
let's get to the final ride. Let's pull in.
Boop,
beep
boop.
beep. This is, I think, a section that I like to put in here to give room for our more personal takes with this movie. I personally remember watching this movie. The first time I ever watched this movie was the first day of the 31 Days of Horror Movies that kind of kicked off this entire podcast. And here we are. So I thought it'd be awesome to revisit this movie now that we have it in a new form. And so for me, it definitely falls in a nice place in my heart. But I also do really think that it's one of those movies that doesn't get its rightful praise, being so influential in the horror genre. And so for me, it's one of those unexpected rides where I am just very impressed for the time for this movie to be made.
Yeah, and I think it kind of falls into a little bit of a filmmaker's film. Like this is like it does get missed a little bit, but it's resonated with so many established and well known, and to us here in America, obviously, of course, filmmakers who saw this early on at some point and were able to have all sorts of different influence unto their own right. And for me, that personal tie that is so kind of like unique and cool to go back to goes to the mask, the essence of the mask, and the influence that has had, and in particular for me, my favorite horror franchise being Halloween.
Yeah.
And that's where Deborah Hill and John Carpenter were like, we want this lifeless, expressionless look, and that is all, they just were like, oh, wait, what's something like that we've seen? And it was just like, oh, Eyes Without a Face is just like, that is the... and it just for that to be such an impetus drive towards, obviously, everybody, what they think about all the time, if they, know anything towards the mask from Halloween, is they just think of William Shatner. Oh, they took the William Shatner mask and just spray painted it white to just give this like very white, oblique kind of look to it. And then it's just kind of this expressionless face. But really, that the dawning of being able to get to that step all came from Eyes Without a Face to begin with.
Yeah.
And from there to like little extrapolating things, for me, there was picked up on our second viewing was that the second victim, she's now bringing Edna back to stay at the house. And you can just see her in the car. There's just kind of like this fear and uncertainty of where she's being brought kind of building upon her. And I would just like, it really just brought me to Friday the 13th, the original, the first one where we don't see, but it's Pamela Voorhees driving one of the girls who's a counselor, and she never makes it.
Anne?
Hey, wasn't that the road up for Camp Crystal Lake back there? I think we better stop.
One thing that I will say, a bugaboo that I have of this movie, which we kind of already touched on, is the cop side story. I fucking hate the cop side story. They don't do shit.
And not to mention what the cops did to the second girl who looked a little bit like Edna, so they wanted her. Really, she was just another pretty face. And this girl was, had some slap on the wrist defense that the cops are like, you know what? for not getting any jail time or anything, we're going to send you in there. And we want you to kind of be our inside man. And they just like no timetable, anything, how long she's going to be with this professor. And she becomes the next experiment or to be experiment.
And the cops quickly are like, well, loose ends are pretty common. See ya.
They
just completely forget
from that.
Yeah, they forget about her. They don't give a shit.
No, and they didn't even. They weren't even like there. They weren't even staking it out, leveraging. Like they
didn't suspect the doctor at all.
No,
they took him for his word.
Yeah. Now I will say, it seems like you should have a small side story with some sort of police investigation, that there shouldn't be any unbeknownst to what's going on. But they did it they did it like dog shit.
Like dog shit. It felt like that's what they thought too.
Yes.
They were like, I guess we do have to have that side story, so I guess we'll write it in.
It really did feel like it was a forced in side piece where everything else has this beautiful pace, poignancy and stuff. It felt throughout it, and then we just get to like you cut over to these cops. And then they just don't do anything. Even when they're trying to do something, it is so... They're just so inept.
So bad. So bad.
Je m'en veux de vous avoir donné inutilement tout ce travail.
Bon, ça n'a pas d'importance, docteur. Les fausses pistes, vous savez, on en a l'habitude.
I personally would have rather spent more time, like take that out, and spent more time with Christiane struggling with the morality of everything,
I wanted more of that too.
I wanted more of her. I wanted more, maybe a scene between her and the Edna, like without, like after the operation, you know, of her like seeing her now in the position that she was in and feeling even more of that guilt. I mean, again, we're talking about 1960, so I think they felt like they needed to put certain things in there. But yeah, that's the one part of the movie where I'm like, man, we could have done something else. We definitely didn't need these cops. Eyes without a face.
Eyes without a face.
There's a human waste. Wow, well, let's get to these smashed pumpkins, shall we?
Smashing them.
Let's smash them up, smash them down.
Gallagher style.
We'll start with you. Out of 5 smashed pumpkins, how are you feeling?
Well, let's see here. Out of the 5, the big 5 of the smashed pumpkins, for this, I am going to sit at a 2.7.
2.7.
2.7 with this. Close to a 3, but not quite fulfilling that, And I wanted to go a little higher within, and part of me does. Part of me, I might even go to a 3.3, just for the essence of. I'm not going to say I'm like that cultured and aware of all French film in the 60s or the 50s prior coming into this era. So much of what it was able to do and did establish and that did resonate with me, I really enjoyed. And especially upon viewing it more than once, it just allowed for so much of that to breathe and for you to feel that more versus a lot of just really kind of picking up on the pieces that first time through. I really enjoyed it. It's one that I will, go back to from time to time, I think, and be able to reference for others or make in reference to other things. Also pay attention for other movies that have been influenced by this. I remember there was The Skin I Live In.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it was a Spanish director that came out in the recent year. Maybe it was 21 or so.
Yeah.
And I know, I haven't seen it still, but I do know there was a lot that was influenced, especially from the skin grafting operations and stuff.
Yes. You see a lot of very similar storylines to this movie pop up after this movie came out. So I think the influence is pretty undeniable.
Yeah, and just a lot of the shots, the atmosphere, the thematics between the 3 main characters, and then just their performances. It really drove it home for me.
Yeah.
Beside the overall story, which I still very much enjoyed, but it was so much rooted in just the conveying of the performances and the visual representations.
Yeah, to me, I think it's just that was my big thing, is the visual storytelling, which is always harder to do, was very well done in this movie. The themes came through super heavy for me. And like I said, it always just really, it surprises me in a good way how good of a movie it is. I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 Smash Pumpkins. And my big bugaboo again is the cops. Fuck that cop story. Waste of time. Fuck that. How about the creepiest kitty? The part that we find the creepiest. I'll go first, I guess. I think that we know the obvious one, I would say, but my less obvious one that I will say is there's this one shot before they take off Edna's face of Christian coming up to Edna.
Oh, that
and
head tilt.
And her hands are like coming over Edna's face, like this very, she wants her face, you know, she's like thinking about like, that's going to be my face soon. And it's this very invasive, creepy, like claws and the shadows coming over her face. It's always just very unsettling to me. And I think it's a beautiful shot too. So I'm going to give a little spotlight to that one.
Wow, that's a great spotlight enhancer there. I like that. I like that a lot. I am going to go a little bit more just right on the nose, and because I just have to resonate the first time I saw it. And the lifting of the face. The scalpeling was fine. It's just once we start getting underneath, there was, even knowing what it was, knowing the practicality and stuff, like it was just, you just allow yourself to be present in the moment. And there was a little bit of twitching. There was a little, oh man, what are we doing?
My God. God, they're doing it.
And salute them for what they did at the time and to push those boundaries, because who knows when those boundaries would have been otherwise pushed if it weren't for then.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first obvious choice.
No, but I love that you deviated and got something a little deeper, because I was like, in the top of my head, I was just like, well, we're just going to kind of land on the same point here. And that was very wise of you to go a little bit further beyond the veil.
Yeah, you'll understand that if and when you watch this, why we both were going to pick that part, because it's
pretty on the nose.
It is pretty on the nose, with a part that is about taking off the nose.
Taking off the nose. And eyes without a face. Let's put that one
to bed. Thank you again so much for coming by for another episode of the Deadlights Pod. Please, like we said, subscribe, turn on those notifications.
Comment away. And please, check out Eyes Without a Face and give us your breakdown, your interpretations as well. And see where it may align, where it may not, and that's all perfectly fine and what we're looking for.
We want to hear it. We want to hear it all. And also got to give a shout out to Playground Social Studios, Rudy in the booth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rudis.
Thank you, Michael, for the amazing TV wall.
Mike TV with the beautiful TV wall behind.
Thank you, Andrew Degner, for all of your amazing cinematography and film work that we've been working with you on.
Lighting us up, beautiful. Getting a lot of the beautiful intro, our new intro, the new established fables and storyline, which we are going to continue to bring you guys, diving deep.
We have to find
into
Leslie.
The Deadlights. We got to find where Leslie went.
We got to figure it out.
And we got this whole laboratory here that, we've gotten some big grant money coming in towards, and we're going to be taking you guys deep, deep, deep into the murky waters, into the Deadlights. Into the verse. Finding it all, new discoveries.
Yes. So thank you all to them, and thank you to you, the listener and the viewer. And we will see you next time.
Stay spooky, y'all.
Stay spooky, y'all.